Welcome to Facts TV News, where everything is true. Woman's decomposing body found in St. Catherine. The decomposed body of a woman was found in Orange Valley District in St. Catherine on Tuesday afternoon. The body is believed to be that of 56-year-old Angela Buchanan, otherwise called Ima of Union District. It was reported that around 4 p.m., residents saw a decomposing body and summoned the police. Upon arrival, the police investigated and realized the body was that of a female. The police said the hands, stomach, and a part of her face appeared to have been eaten by animals. A crutch was seen close to the body, the police said. Information reaching reporters indicated that last Thursday, Miss Buchanan was reported missing at the Shady Grove police station by a relative. Constabulary investigating murder of district constable in St. Thomas. The Jamaica Constabulary Force JCF has pledged to conduct a thorough investigation aimed at apprehending the persons responsible for the death of District Constable in St. Thomas on February 13. Mark Forsyth, who was assigned to the Trinityville police station in the parish, was shot and killed at around 3:40 p.m. According to the police, Mark responded to reports of suspicious men seen in the York District community. While reporting, Mark reportedly sought assistance from colleagues. However, he was attacked by gunmen who opened fire, hitting him multiple times. The men also reportedly opened gunfire on citizens who tried to assist Mark. The cop was pronounced dead at hospital. Head of the Constabulary's Communication Unit, Senior Superintendent Stephanie Lindsay, told reporters that support is being provided to Mark's loved ones. Anyone with information in relation to the incident is asked to contact the Major Investigations Division at 876-758-5048, Police 119 emergency number, or Crime Stop at 311.
It's a very unfortunate situation. I had dialogue earlier with the commanding officer for the St. Thomas Division, and it has really impacted the staff because this young man was said to be a very well-liked police officer. He was the coach for the football team. He was very involved in community activities. So even outside of his core work as a police officer, he was very much involved in his community. So it has also affected the community. The family, the immediate family, his grandparents, his son, the son, his mother, she's overseas, who also served the force and she retired. So they are getting the necessary counsel and support from the chaplaincy unit and the welfare branch. In addition to the immediate family, the other co-workers and members of staff are also getting counseling to help them to cope with the tragedy. And the investigators are now out trying to find this person who killed Constable Forsyth.
Unexplained wealth among party errors for next legislative year. The introduction of measures to deal with unexplained wealth is one of the priorities that the government will be seeking to tackle this legislative year. This according to Governor General Sir Patrick Allen, who delivered the throne speech at the ceremonial opening of Parliament yesterday morning. Sir Patrick noted that government will pursue key legislative reforms to advance efforts towards realizing improved public order and safety. He said government remains relentless in executing the strategies necessary to safeguard citizen security, pointing to planned improvement to law enforcement infrastructure.
The government will pursue key legislative reforms to advance efforts towards realizing improved public order, improved public safety, and reduction in crime and violence by prioritizing the following. 1. Amendment to the Fingerprints Act. 2. Amendment to the Immigration Restriction Commonwealth Citizens Act and Aliens Act. Review of the Corrections Act. Amendments to the Proceeds of Crime Act, POCA, to include unexplained wealth. In 2023-2024, the government will continue to modernize the modernization of law enforcement with the expansion of the Jamaica Eye network, the inclusion of additional sites to the radio and microwave networks, which are operated by the Jamaica Constabulary Force, and continue the construction and renovation of police stations and other facilities.
Remaining public sector groups urged to agree to restructured compensation within next 6 weeks. There is no room in the budget for the upcoming fiscal year for salary payments in the current fiscal year under the public sector restructured compensation system. The reminder was issued by Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark in Parliament. Several public sector groups, including teachers and police, are yet to agree to the new system. Dr. Clark noted that groups that do not sign up by the end of this fiscal year will not get the payments until after 2024. He stressed that the budget for the upcoming fiscal year only accommodates payment of wages and salaries for 2023-2024. The minister urged public sector groups to finalize discussions within the next 6 weeks, adding that representatives from the ministry will be available at any time.
The largest single item of expenditure is the amount of $338 billion for wages and salaries. This includes provisions for the second year of implementation of the public sector compensation restructuring. This level of expenditure is approximately $100 billion higher than the wages and salaries for fiscal year 2021-2022 after adjusting for allowances previously captured in programs. It should be abundantly evident that based on what I've just described, that there is no room in the upcoming fiscal year, which is 23-24, for salary payments related to 2022-23 to be made. The amount of $338 billion only contains 2023-24 salaries. So we are therefore, Madam Speaker, working feverishly, making ourselves available to complete negotiations on the public sector restructuring in the remaining weeks of this year to facilitate fiscal year 2022-23 salaries in fiscal year 2022-23. Any of these amounts not paid this fiscal year will have to be paid over a number of years, beginning in the fiscal year that follows the upcoming one. Madam Speaker, even if the first time is a no, we are not deterred. That does not mean that we cannot get to a yes. There are only a few weeks left. We are available morning, noon, and night, weekday and weekend. Let's talk. Let's get it done. I want to make it clear, though, that this also has an impact on those in the political directorate, councillors, parliamentarians, ministers, etc. The people have to come before us. We will not be in a position to make compensation adjustments until we adjust for the major groups. This may not be convenient, but it's simply a matter of principle.
Dr. Clark went on further to state, if all goes according to plan, the government is looking to spend $1 trillion in the next fiscal year, 2023-2024. He noted that this $1 trillion budget is the first in Jamaica's history. He said the 2023-2024 expenditure include funding to cover the public sector restructured compensation system and the Independent Fiscal Commission. Dr. Clark said public debt will end the fiscal year at pre-fiscal levels.
Building on the achievements of fiscal year 2022-2023, the government plans to spend $1 trillion in fiscal year 2023-2024. This is Jamaica's first $1 trillion budget. This amount, Madam Speaker, is allocated across the main expenditure categories as $665.7 billion or 22.5% of GDP to non-debt recurrent expenditure, $75.3 billion or 2.5% of GDP to capital expenditure, and $280.6 billion or 9.5% of GDP to debt service. Included in the non-debt recurrent expenditure are allocations to implement the second year of the 3-year public sector compensation restructure and allocations to operationalize the Independent Fiscal Commission, which has been captured as head 10,000 in the expenditure estimates. The allocation for capital expenditure takes into account the existing capacity to implement capital programs and focuses on the priority areas to enhance development. Debt service at 9.5% of GDP, which reflects both amortization, i.e. principal repayments, and interest payments, reflect action taken over prior years to reduce the debt burden, as that 9.5% of GDP was significantly higher only a decade ago. With interest payments this year of $155 billion being fully financed by revenue. The overall public debt is estimated to end the current fiscal year as at March 31st, 2023 at 79.7% of GDP. This is expected to decline further to 74.2% of GDP by fiscal year 2023-24. This is a projection. It depends on parameters and variables that are not totally in the control of any single person. But should it be achieved, Madam Speaker, that is the 74.2% at the end of this fiscal year, it would mark the first time since the nationalization of the financial sector crisis through FinSAC in the latter half of the 1990s that debt has entered the domain of pre-FinSAC levels. Central government revenue and grant inflows are estimated at $897.6 billion, which alongside the above-the-line expenditure of $887.7 billion will generate the required fiscal balance surplus of $9.9 billion or 0.3% of GDP, consistent with fiscal rules. The corresponding primary balance required for debt service and to generate the targeted fiscal balance is approximately $165 billion or 5.6% of GDP. It should be noted, Madam Speaker, that the revenue estimates tabled today reflect the original budget tabled in March of 2022. Although we have indicated revisions to fiscal year 2022-23 revenue estimates at each tabling of the 3 supplementary expenditure estimates.
Please remember to subscribe,